Good morning. You're listening to Caregiver Crossing, a podcast brought to you by Joy's House and presented in partnership with Cardon and Associates. We are happy that you're with us today. Just in case you don't know, Caregiver Crossing is a podcast created just for you, the caregiver. I'm Tina McIntosh.
I'm Terry Stacy.
And I'm Candace Hadavall. Welcome, everyone.
Family caregivers in the state of Indiana provide over, now listen to this number, $10 billion in unpaid care for their loved ones. $10 billion of unpaid care in the state of Indiana by family caregivers. And so today we are joined by Sarah Waddle, who we love. She is the AARP Indiana State Director and leads all kinds of incredible efforts for all of us over a certain age, but especially these family caregivers today. So she is going to share more about this and other new caregiver data. And Sarah, we're just so glad that you're with us today. So let's talk about some of this. AARP is doing some great work for the aging population and family caregivers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, a big portion of our work here at AARP Indiana is really focused on improving Indiana's rather stinky long-term care system that we have in this state. And a big part of that is making sure that family caregivers are recognized and supported as part of this system. I think for a long time, when we think of caregivers, we thought of the paid type, and there are still people today who don't recognize themselves as an unpaid family caregiver, but we know how important their time and service and dedication is to supporting our long-term care system in Indiana. They're the backbone.
Yeah, they are. And Sarah, you mentioned that Indiana has a kind of a stinky reputation. Aren't we ranked like 3 or 4 in the nation? Do we still hold that title?
We tend to hover, really low. And unfortunately, in the area of family caregiving, on a different AARP report, not one we're talking about today, but we have a scorecard that we put out every so often. And Indiana ranks 51st in caregiver supports. 51st. That's dead last.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, I don't know what to say. And it's been that way for years. And I know we're making a lot of changes and I know there are a lot of programs coming, but man, you just hate to be last in anything. I sure hate to be last in family caregiving programs, but that also means there's a lot of opportunity, right?
We can only go up from here, right?
Oh, it's so sad and true. So tell us a little bit about the economic impact that caregiving and the need for caregiving has in our state.
Yep. So the unpaid care provided by 790,000 Hoosier family caregivers. That's about the number we have, 790,000. And it's valued at $10.8 billion. And that's billion with a B. And this is all according to some new state data available in our latest update to AARP's Valuing the Invaluable series. It's a great report that really highlights the impact that caregivers have and some of the challenges that they face.
So today we are joined by Sarah Waddle, AARP State Director. Before we took our break, we were discussing the economic value of caregiving. And Sarah, you mentioned the Valuing the Invaluable series. This series also shared some prominent issues facing caregivers. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the list, I think, as you can guess, is pretty long, but I think some of the ones that hit home most for folks are really this balancing act for those that are the sandwich generation caregivers. Those are the folks who have loved ones on both ends of the age spectrum. They have children at home while they're also taking care of a parent or an older adult. That has impacts on employment. Sometimes folks have to cut hours or even step back completely from their job to take care of someone.
I want to talk about that for just a second because, and you might not have the answer, Sarah, but I do wonder, the pandemic made a lot of people reevaluate their lives. What are the priorities? Who's important to me? And we know anybody who has stepped out of their house in the last year knows that people aren't working like they used to. So do we have any data on caregivers who left the workforce or reduced their employment?
I don't have those numbers yet, but I'm sure there are people working on that probably as we speak, because I think there's lots of things that are being looked at. The pandemic brought a lot of bad and negative, but it also really pulled the curtain back on some things. And I think long-term care was one of those.
Yes.
We got to see a lot of the bad stuff that was happening and a lot of the challenges that people face. A lot of people had to make the tough decision to leave the workforce during the pandemic to take care of a loved one because they didn't have workplace flexibility or paid leave.
Yeah, you're right. And it did shine a light in a lot of areas. I mean, people would ask us at Joy's house, like, how did the pandemic affect you? And other than the being in a, curled in a ball, rocking back and forth because we were afraid we weren't going to be here for another week, at that time, not knowing, all of us in the world, period. But we also said that we recognize the stresses that it put on caregivers because they were home 24/7 with their loved ones. And so I appreciate you saying there's probably some work being done on that, because I can't imagine that all the caregivers came back to work. Some things are more important. We get that. All right. And you had other things on that list too. Thanks for entertaining my conversation.
A lot of folks, I think, had to make tough choices around if they couldn't visit a loved one in a nursing home, for instance. How did they handle that? And sometimes that was bringing them home to be with them. The direct service workforce, the folks that we depend upon, our home and community-based services folks, that whole system is very, very strained right now. There is a big shortage. And so folks had to make decisions about not being able to have the home care or whatever supports that they may have had in place. All while they're, maybe trying to take care of kids and help them with their homework, working virtually, and then taking care of a loved one at home.
That's Sarah, exhausting just thinking about.
Yeah. Do we know if there's anything happening with trying to restock the direct care workforce?
Yeah, I think once the shock of it has worn off. I think everybody is now keenly aware of the workforce shortage that we have in this industry. I think there are a lot of smart people thinking about it right now. Obviously, it takes resources to improve the direct service workforce situation, and it takes time. And so both of those things, unfortunately, are just going to impact caregivers while we get this figured out. But yeah, the state of Indiana is looking at some things. Legislators are keenly aware of the problem. Facilities are keenly aware of the problem. Let's get creative. Let's think about this differently. Because I don't think we're going to just all of a sudden attract a big boom of people to come work in this industry. We've got to think about it differently.
And I would say this, if you're listening and you're like, have they considered this or what about that? You can email me at tina@joyshouse.org. I'm always happy to send it on to Sarah or others that might be, in those conversations. But again, tina@joyshouse.org. You are hearing the voice of Sarah Waddle, the AARP Indiana State Director. And so that's kind of the heavy, right? The numbers, a little doom and gloom. Like, we know we're on this side of the pandemic. What's to come, though? I mean, what's being done about caregiver programs? I know what we're doing at Joy's house. Others are doing things too. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Joy's house was trailblazing, and this still are to this day, but you all were trailblazing in caregivers long before people were talking about it like we are today.
Thank you.
And I think that there is more of awareness and recognition of family caregivers, who they are, their contributions. The pandemic, like we talked about, kind of pulled the curtain back on that. I think that we're seeing some progress both at the federal and state level in terms of creating caregiver supports through various bits of legislation. So, for instance, a lot of states are passing caregiver tax credits. We know caregivers have a lot of out-of-pocket expenses. I think to the tune around, average is like $7,500, but we know that can go, the sky is the limit. And so giving folks a little bit of help there so that that's not much of a worry. Fighting for these workplace flexibility, paid leave, things that can help people support their loved ones. So there are good things going on. here in the state of Indiana, we are making a big shift over the next couple of years to where we are transitioning our long-term care system into a managed care system. And this is going to mean a lot of change for folks, but I think what we're going to see are more supports for family caregivers. This is what is going to finally put Indiana on the map in terms of supporting these caregivers. We're going to be able to do an assessment, determine what their needs are. We know their health goes down. We know their financial security goes down. What can we be doing to take care of this person who is such a valuable resource?
Is there an assessment out there at this time for caregivers that you're aware of?
So there are some assessments that states have put together who are already doing that are further along than the state of Indiana. So there are states that have caregiver assessments, and there are some national organizations that also have caregiver assessments. Indiana actually has in draft form a caregiver assessment that they're going to be utilizing with the transition to managed care. So every person who utilizes Medicaid for their long-term care services, which is a lot of people, their caregivers are going to be included in the process.
Good. Yeah, I think, that we talk about that on the show a lot. A lot of times people just don't even know they're caregivers. I'm a daughter. I'm just doing what a daughter does. This is my spouse. I'm doing what a spouse does. And so that's one of the things is we roll out Caregiver Way, the online community that we're going to have for caregivers. That's one of the things we will have as an entry point in. And so whoever is doing that caregiver assessment, I would love to talk with them and see if we can link up, not just for folks who are receiving Medicaid waiver, but other folks, as well, private pay and others. So Sarah, you all at AARP, you do such great work. And we're grateful. I've known you for a long time and am grateful that you're at this time when I feel like the conversation is shifting, that you are, I don't know, what's it called? You're driving the car, you're at the helm. I don't know what the right words are. I'm just glad you're in charge. And so you are valuing at AARP the Invaluable series, and there's this prominent issues that we know are facing caregivers. What are we doing at the state level? I know there are some just basic state level plans that you can share.
So there is a lot that happens already, even within your local area agency on aging. If you don't know who they are, you need to find them because they have resources that a lot of people aren't aware of, and ones that can help caregivers in terms of training and what to expect. There are groups out there like Joy's House who have created wonderful resources that can help folks just be better prepared to be a caregiver. I think workforce, places of employment and our HR departments are realizing that this is a burden on their employees. And so they are coming up with creative ways of supporting their employees. AARP, for instance, I know it's kind of the obvious one, but we get a week of what is just called caregiver leave. And so it's not our sick leave, that our sick leave is for us and our immediate family. But if we have to take care of somebody outside of that, we have some time that we can take to do that. So I think people are getting creative and things are being realized. We just got to get it all synced up, right? And so I think in Indiana, there's a lot of good happening, and we just need to make sure that we're harnessing it and moving in the right direction.
Candace, before you close us out, because I see it coming, you mentioned this caregiver leave. We don't even have that at Joy's House, Sarah. Like you're saying that, and I'm like, shame on us for not having that. And so I think the more we talk about this stuff and the more we get in with employers and as an industry, we can talk with them about here are some things you can do for caregivers. And we know from a bazillion years ago, and maybe this has changed, but there were studies done on the fact that if people were caring for a loved one, they wouldn't tell their employers. They were afraid they were going to get dinged or not get the promotion. And so hopefully the climate around that conversation is changing. But I think just those things, Sarah, like, hey, if you're an employer, do you have a caregiver leave? If you don't, why not? And here are some other simple things you can do are great things we need to be talking about. So I just thought I'd throw Joy's House under the bus on that one, and we'll do better with that. But Candace.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. Sarah is the AARP Indiana State Director. Sarah, if anyone wants to reach out to you, how would someone reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach us, a couple of ways. I'll give you a couple of ways. So aarp.org/in, that's going to get you to the AARP Indiana website, where it's going to give you Indiana-specific priorities and events and things that are happening where AARP is engaged. You can reach us through there. There's an inbox that we respond to. And then social media is a great way to keep track of us, Facebook being the primary. If you're super interested in a lot of the policy stuff, Twitter is where to find us. Just search for AARP Indiana.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for Tina and Terry for joining us today. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsor, Cardon and Associates. With 20 communities owned, operated, and managed in the Midwest and more than 40 years of senior living experience, Cardon and Associates provides residents with the best senior living options and personalized care. Until next time, take good care of each other.